Welcome back to From the Couch Sports. So, breaking news, the New York Jets have hired Nathaniel Hackett to be their offensive coordinator this year. If anybody who followed the NFL in this last season, Nathaniel Hackett was the head coach of the Denver Broncos, and they had a terrible season. Notably, their offense was just horrendous. If you had to rank like the worst offenses in football, obviously the New York Jets were there, but the Denver Broncos were there as well, right in the mix of things. That's despite having a quarterback that many people believed was a Hall of Fame caliber quarterback, and he just took a giant step off in this year. The only year of his career that he's had, Nathaniel Hackett, is his coach, and um, some people in the NFL, they just don't work out as head coaches and they're better coordinators. What feels like happened, because if we look back at Nathaniel Hackett's kind of coaching history, he was the offensive coordinator of the Buffalo Bills in 2013 and 2014. I'm pretty sure those are the EJ Manuel years. I think they drafted him in 2013. So he was that OC. I don't remember those teams being notable at all. And then he was the QB coach of the Jags from 2015 to 2016 before getting promoted to the OC for the Jags from 2016 to 2018. So one part of that I guess is good is he was the OC on the AFC Championship Jaguars team. That's something that is certainly an impressive mark on his career. That was with Blake Bortles as his quarterback. But also he basically was in the room with Blake Bortles for pretty much his entire career in Jacksonville. So, not a whole lot of developing the young talented guy. But going to the AFC title game, that was impressive. At that year they had one of the best defenses in football as well, if not the best. But yeah, so this move to me does not indicate that the Jets are doubling down on the development of Zach Wilson. This is a we're going after Aaron Rodgers move. It's very interesting because on one hand it feels like we've had more success in the last year than we have in like 10, 15 years. Well, since like the 2010 season. But on the other hand, it seems like if things don't go the right direction, then we're looking at a complete rebuild. New coaching staff, new GM next year most likely. And then literally it's all going to come down to a couple unique decisions that typically aren't Jets-like decisions, such as bringing in a good quarterback. It's funny how little Jets fans understand how bad our QB room has been. In the last 3 years, there has not been a single QB throw for 10 touchdowns. We can sit and debate about which QB would help the Jets the most, what's worth the money, what's worth the draft picks if you have to trade something. But at the end of the day, as Jets fans, we do not know what a good quarterback looks like. We haven't seen one in years. I mean, our best Jets season, arguably, one of the best seasons ever as a Jets QB statistically, was a journeyman quarterback in Ryan Fitzpatrick in I believe 2015 with Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker. That's like one of the best seasons ever. We have the Hall of Fame quarterback Joe Namath, who certainly was kind of ahead of his time, the first QB in the NFL history to throw for 4,000 yards. The game of football was totally different at the time. The way defensive backs could play receivers, totally different. The rule sets have changed towards the offensive side of things. And also he played during a time where it was heavy run games. And, but this is over 50 years ago since we've won. And since then, we've had a mixed bag of either below average QBs, guys that are like floating around middle of the pack like a Chad Pennington, and besides that, it's just been historically bad quarterback play. And, so the risk that Salah and Joe Douglas and everybody involved in this organization are making is that Joe Douglas can make a move and get a good veteran quarterback. And that QB can help lead us to some success this next year. But the decision for Nathan Hackett, it's interesting because I feel like it somewhat rules out certain quarterbacks. Like, I don't know if this is the type of OC you bring in if you're going to trade for Lamar Jackson. That a lot of people aren't thinking that he's a name that could be traded this offseason because his coach came out and said they want to negotiate with him. But I think people just fail to realize that this is the NFL and teams rarely ever just vocally admit publicly that they are trying to trade a player. So until Lamar Jackson puts the pen to the paper and is signed under contract, there's a good chance he gets traded. But with that being said, I don't know how I like our odds with Nathaniel Hackett as our OC bringing in Lamar. I mean, he struggled a ton with Russell Wilson. So it almost feels like it's Aaron Rodgers or bust, which is kind of what the Denver Broncos just went through last year. And they brought on, everybody raves about Nathaniel Hackett's relationship with Aaron Rodgers, and they brought him on to be the Denver Broncos head coach. And a lot of people thought Aaron Rodgers was going to get traded. Then he kind of agreed with the Packers to stay for another year and continue staying in Green Bay. And so Denver had to pivot, and instead they traded for another very good quarterback, a guy who's been incredible his entire career. And then he didn't pan out at all with Russell Wilson and Nathaniel Hackett. Just the offense was so bad. At one point, there was a stat that came out and said if they had scored 20 points per game, then they'd be like 9-1, like the number one seed in the AFC. And so for them to be that bad, it kind of feels like you need Aaron Rodgers, or at least like you need a QB who's going to be able to take control of the offense, even more so than Russell Wilson was able to. And so, obviously, if you get Aaron Rodgers, that potentially gives you a Super Bowl window of a year or 2 years. But the likelihood of the New York Jets making a move like that, and also, like, does Aaron Rodgers want anything to do with the Jets? It just doesn't seem like the Aaron Rodgers type of move. This is a guy that's been kind of bashed by the media and everything in the last couple years. For him to go to the New York media, which is one of the craziest. I mean, if you just look at our group of beat writers, we've got these guys just kind of stir the pot constantly. They're trying to find negative things to talk about. You saw the Jets go and beat the Green Bay Packers earlier in the year, and the first thing Rich Cimini does is comment about how Elijah Moore didn't get any targets in the game. And then this leads to, and I'm sure Elijah Moore knew, and he probably had, was probably upset about the whole situation, but it puts it on a public scale, and then that led to the trade demand from our second-year wide receiver. We've had other stories about, Le'Veon Bell's 250 pounds when there's no evidence that he looks that big at all. Mekhi Becton, they've said, constant just random stories about his weight, the work ethic. After some of this, it come to find out that Mike LaFleur had a lot of tension with some of the players. And it was pretty obvious, the way he spoke about players is you could tell it's not a veteran coach way to talk about players, and just the way he handled some of the situations with whether it be Denzel Mims or Mekhi Becton. It's like these are very talented players that seemingly the offensive staff doesn't like. So, going forward, I think if we can land Aaron Rodgers, we're in a great position. If we don't land Aaron Rodgers, then we need to pivot immediately and go out and get Derek Carr, because the options are kind of limited as far as what great QB we can bring in. The Raiders have been talking a lot about or Derek Carr and everything, it seems like they're leaning towards trading him. But from what the reports are saying for Derek Carr, if the Raiders go past the Super Bowl, like I think it's two or 3 days after the Super Bowl, they'll have to pay him a lot more money rather than cutting him. So if it gets to that point, they probably release him, and then he's free to sign with any team in the NFL. And there is going to be a ton of teams in the NFL that want a quarterback of Derek Carr's level. So we're quickly approaching that point to where we could miss out on a Derek Carr. The Aaron Rodgers thing, I feel like it's a pipe dream. It feels too good to be true for a Jets fan to think about Aaron Rodgers in a Jets uniform. And I know it kind of mirrors the Brett Favre thing that we had in 2008. But I think at this point, Aaron Rodgers has been a better quarterback in his career. And he has not had the teams around him. Like, this Jets team would be incredible with Aaron Rodgers. You look at the amount of times Aaron Rodgers went to the NFC Championship with a decent defense. I know they've been better in recent years, but they were a decent defense before, who was still taking them that far. And they've had a mixed bag of weapons outside of one great weapon in Devontae Adams, and the running game has been good. But arguably with the Jets, you get a guy in Breece Hall who can take the top off the defense. That's something that you never really had with Aaron Jones. He's still an excellent running back, but he doesn't have that break off speed to take it to the house on any play. And then you have like the weapons, the receivers. I think Elijah Moore can succeed with a good quarterback. Garrett Wilson looks like he could be a future Pro Bowler consistently. He's an incredible rookie season. Then you have other guys like Denzel Mims, Corey Davis. I know that it seems like they're on the fence as far as keeping him. And then the tight end duo. I mean, the Packers they had Mercedes Lewis, who's like 40 years old at their tight end spot. And the Jets have two young tight ends that are in their prime. And then, Jeremy Ruckert, who is a guy who showed some promise in the limited amount of snaps that he got during the season and in preseason. So you got a lot, kind of to work with offensively if you're Aaron Rodgers. And then you have a stout defense. This is a defense that basically won us games all year long. We were in games that we shouldn't have been because of the defense. And countless games that was, if we had a QB, we would have won. We for sure are a playoff team if we had a good QB this last season. So adding Aaron Rodgers to the mix of this, I think could be a really good situation. And I think the entire team, the coaching staff, they all know this is kind of they're on the hot seat. So this year, you put all your chips into the table. You don't care about future draft picks or anything. You go out and you get the quarterback that you want. You get Aaron Rodgers. And with that, if you get Aaron Rodgers, you get veterans that come over and come play with you. We've seen this with Tom Brady. Brady goes to the Bucs. Rob Gronkowski decides to join him. Then you get Leonard Fournette, Antonio Brown, Julio Jones this year. Like, it's just constant good weapons, and people come and basically just to play with Tom Brady. And I think it would be similar with the Packers and Aaron Rodgers. We could get, maybe a guy like Randall Cobb comes on and he plays the slot role for us, takes over that Braxton Berrios position potentially. I think he'd be better in that role than Berrios was this last season. You get if you could bring Bakhtiari on, the left tackle on the Packers, you have a very good O-line, and the picks that you traded for Aaron Rodgers aren't near as important. Just some of those players. There's certain players that Aaron Rodgers really has bonds with. I'm sure they're willing to come over to the Jets. The Jets finally have, a respectable head coach. They've got players. They've got talent. They've won some football games against good football teams. So it's more believable that players will come out. There was a couple people online tweeting about like Odell Beckham coming to play for the Jets. Odell has the experience in New York. He has a relationship with Aaron Rodgers. Now, Odell Beckham is not a Jets type of move if you have Zach Wilson. But if you got a veteran quarterback, a Hall of Fame quarterback in Aaron Rodgers, that's a type of move that might make sense. You add Odell with the group that we have now, or you bring in Allen Lazard. There's so much that can happen. And it seems like not only is Aaron Rodgers willing to take kind of a pay cut to make something happen, but also the way that the trade seems to work is, from what reports are saying, is it would be like a $15 million cap hit. To be against this, like if we look at our drafting history, because some fans are like anti-trading, because the rumor is it's 2 first-round picks to get Aaron Rodgers. I think that's a little bit crazy. I feel like it would probably be less than that. But even in worst case scenario, it's 2 first-round picks for him. If you look at the first-round picks we've had in the last decade, for example, we've had a mixed bag of busts, basically. We had D. Milner. We had, Christian Hackenberg was a second-round pick. Calvin Pryor. Quinton Coples was a pick. All these guys just did not pan out in the NFL. Darren Lee, guys that were first-round picks that we used draft picks on, and they didn't turn out to be great players in the NFL. You can look at the second-round picks; they're almost all terrible. Jason Morrow, Stephen Hill, we've had so much hope for these picks to pan out, and they just haven't. So to say let's keep our picks and not trade for Aaron Rodgers, that's just crazy. You have a proven commodity. You've got a guy that even in this last season, which was one of the worst seasons of his career, if he put those stats up on the Jets, we'd be in the playoffs. We might even be playing this weekend coming up in the AFC title game. It's a no-brainer. We beat the Bills with Zach Wilson playing quarterback, and he's a guy that was putting up numbers similar to Jamarcus Russell. If you put in Aaron Rodgers on that team, we might sweep the Bills. We probably beat the Pats for the first time in 50 years. We haven't beat the Pats in so long. It's been multiple years since we beat the Pats, and we probably do it at least one time with Aaron Rodgers at QB. The Dolphins, the second game against them, we beat them with Aaron Rodgers at QB. The Vikings game, we beat them with Aaron Rodgers at QB. It's a no-brainer. We probably win 12 to 14 games next year if we have Aaron Rodgers. You put all of your chips into the table. It doesn't matter about the future. The team is too good right now to be in position to be drafting first overall with a Caleb Williams or something like that. So your first-round draft pick is not near as important as it would be if you were a projected top 5 pick. So if it takes 2 firsts and you have to throw in extra stuff, just do whatever it takes. Get Aaron Rodgers in a Jets uniform. Figure out the rest later. I know people think that the cap space doesn't work. A lot of people are saying, we can't sign Quinton Williams and trade for Aaron Rodgers because we're already over the cap. And it's just do some of these people that have these opinions not follow the rest of the NFL? Because we just saw the Saints had $50 million over the cap last year going into the offseason, and then somehow still put together a decent roster and won some football games. Obviously, they weren't a playoff team, but they still were able to make things work. And that was after 5 years of pushing Drew Brees' contract down the line, Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, just pushing these things down the line. And if you're the Jets, you can swing this. There's certain players that will take pay cuts. If you're bringing on Aaron Rodgers, if you got potential to add a big playmaker wide receiver like an Odell Beckham, a DeAndre Hopkins, if you were to bring one of those guys in, who wouldn't want to take a pay cut? Because it means that you have a very good chance to win a Super Bowl. And the reality is, we're looking at some of these teams in the playoffs, and the Jets have a much better roster than some of these teams. The New York Giants won a game in the playoffs, and then they got out. But the Vikings, a lot of these teams were significantly better than the Jacksonville Jaguars were better than outside of quarterback. If we had a QB, we beat these teams, and we're potentially right in the mix with the Chiefs, right in the mix with the Bengals. And then, compared to NFC teams, I would argue that Aaron Rodgers on the Jets makes us the best team, better than any team in the NFC. But obviously we'll see how things play out. I still, as a Jets fan, we've just been so used to just everything seems to go wrong being a Jets fan. It's we finally build around our rookie quarterback in Zach Wilson, and he just doesn't pan out for whatever reason. We finally bring in a big free agent in Le'Veon Bell, but we sign Adam Gase to be his head coach. The Sam Darnold doesn't work out because Adam Gase. It's just these little moves for the Jets that seem to just kill us year after year. We win stupid, meaningless games in the year we could have drafted Trevor Lawrence, and then we get to watch him go and win a playoff game and lead the biggest comeback in NFL playoff history. And that those reasons are why I think the Aaron Rodgers to the Jets is a pipe dream. But to me, it's a dream worth risking everything for. It's a dream worth pushing all of your chips into the table, put your job on the line, because if you get Aaron Rodgers, you can win a Super Bowl next year. And if you don't get Aaron Rodgers, then you settle for what you can get. You go after another alternative QB, and you hope to keep rebuilding this thing and hope you have a job next year, because if the other QB comes on and he doesn't take you to the playoffs, you're probably all out. But these next couple weeks I think are getting interesting. I know Matt Stafford was traded around the Super Bowl time, and there was another guy last year I can't fully remember. But this is something that could come here in the next week or two. So I'm praying that Joe Douglas is gonna pull this off. If he pulls off the Aaron Rodgers trade, he's the greatest GM in sports history, arguably. The amount of trades he's landed with the Jets as it is, outside of the Zach Wilson pick, I'm pretty happy with the job he's done. If he brings on Aaron Rodgers to the New York Jets, it would be incredible. But that's pretty much all I've got to say on the topic. Let me know what you guys' thoughts are on the Nathan Hackett signing. Do you think it was a good move, a bad move? If you think it's a bad move, which guys would you have wanted us to sign? Because looking at some of the other options, I think Hackett might have been one of the better options of the guys we interviewed. But as always, thanks for tuning in. If you enjoy the content, like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more.